And a bid or clash in the Big Apple. The candidates running to be the next mayor of New York City hit the debate stage for the final time last night.
This one was feisty. Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani, the big frontrunner, 2 weeks out from Election Day. And while this is technically a local race, we know it is something the entire country and even the White House are watching closely. Mamdani has a commanding lead in the polls, but former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa used the final debate to try to make their mark. For more, we are joined by Henry Rossoff. He is a senior political reporter at Pix 11 in New York. Henry, good morning to you. I know you watched this thing last night. What were your biggest takeaways, maybe for each of the three candidates who were on that stage?
Well, good morning from inside the City Hall press room. You'll notice I'm the only one in here because everyone was up late last night watching that debate. Biggest takeaways for each. I thought it was a much stronger debate for former Governor Andrew Cuomo, of course, who was the Democratic governor for more than 10 years here before resigning in scandal. He was more composed. He threw more effective jabs. He really showed off the depth and breadth of his knowledge. And actually, for the first time, Democratic Socialist, the Democratic nominee, and Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani really took damage, particularly on the waffling he's done on various local issues that may not be as perceptible if you're watching this from a national perspective. But there's some very important initiatives on our ballot this year around housing. Housing is arguably the number one issue at the intersection of affordability here. He's been waffling on whether or not to commit to some of those ballot initiatives and was called out pretty sternly on that. And then you had Republican Curtis Sliwa, who's a well-known, effectively character here in New York, the leader of the Guardian Angels for a number of years, very bombastic. He did a bombastic radio interview earlier in the day with a former friend where he effectively quit his job as a conservative commentator because he's grown so frustrated with people calling on him to drop out. And you saw a lot of that sort of excitement and energy he brought to the stage, really landing haymakers on anyone who was talking at any given time. Particularly, it's the one time that former Governor Cuomo caught a right hook, so to speak, where Sliwa said, "You didn't just leave, Governor, you resigned in disgrace. Let's not forget about that."
Well, it's really interesting because I think a lot of people, a lot of New Yorkers, sort of, even if they won't vote for Curtis Sliwa, they like Curtis Sliwa. He's a real New Yorker. Do you think he damaged one of those candidates a little bit?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think the field is pretty baked in right now, which is why you have so much focus on whether or not Sliwa should be stepping out of this race and perhaps throwing in behind former Governor Cuomo, because we have seen such consistent polling, including polling that we here have done at Pix 11 in concert with you guys in Emerson College, which effectively shows Mamdani in the 40s, Cuomo in the high 20s, low 30s, and Sliwa in the high to mid teens. And that's been consistent for months now. And so everyone sitting there doing the math is saying, well, if you don't want Mamdani, who is the most arguably controversial candidate here because of some big and different ideas that he's proposing, which I'm happy to discuss with you guys, then perhaps there needs to be this unity ticket behind Cuomo. But Sliwa has been unwilling to engage in that conversation.
So, Henry, what are the other big issues? You mentioned housing, which is a big issue nationwide, but what other New York City-centric issues are there that are really sort of putting these candidates at odds with one another?
Well, I would say the issue of free buses and transportation. Mamdani has really jump-started this conversation by suggesting that buses should be free. Now, of course, nothing is actually free. This would cost $700 million that he'd have to negotiate with the state because the state runs the public transportation system known as the MTA here in New York City. Cuomo has counter-proposed that by saying we shouldn't just give free buses to everyone. We should be subsidizing low and middle income people, but we've seen programs like that in the past really have low enrollment because people don't realize that they exist. And so Mamdani's counter to that is just make all the buses free, which largely serve underserved communities to begin with. It's not like very many wealthy Manhattanites are riding the bus. Sliwa was actually called out at one point for not really actually having much of a transportation proposal. He's very high on policing, safety, security, and essentially wants to flood the subway system with 7,000 more police officers. Cuomo wants to add 5,000 more police officers. And this is a really important area of difference. Mamdani does not want to add any police officers. He doesn't want to defund the police, which is a position he's taken in the past. But in this particular campaign, what he has said is he would keep the number the same. The current number is about 33,000 with another 1,000 cops in the pipeline. And he's really been taken to task about wanting to do some things very differently at the intersection of policing, mental health, and homelessness. And it is a weak point for him. And so he made news just before the debate and discussed this a little bit on the debate stage about seeking to maintain a very popular police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, who's also a member of a wealthy New York elite family. And so it may also be somewhat of a bone thrown to the elites in this town that have some deep reservations about Mamdani.
Arguably, the one thing Mamdani had to do would be to allay the fears of people who might be sitting on the fence. There are a lot of people in the Jewish community who are very tentative about him or even fearful of him. Older New Yorkers are probably more likely to vote for an Andrew Cuomo than a Zohran Mamdani. Did he allay any fears? Was there anything he said that could make people more comfortable about him or not?
I'm not sure he moved the needle on Jewish New Yorkers, which is absolutely a real concern. I was actually at the press conference of record, this is many months ago, where he broke down in tears, kind of going back and forth and talking about some of the anti-Muslim threats he's been receiving. But really what he was being asked about is some anti-Semitic language, globalize the Intifada in particular, which has become a rallying cry for killing Jews. And he kind of got inside his own head and started explaining how he didn't want to police speech and has since moved away from that position and said he would discourage the use, but still hasn't, quote unquote, denounced it, which Cuomo and Sliwa have called him out repeatedly for. So he gave some version of that answer once again and said he would be a mayor to all Jewish New Yorkers. Now, on older New Yorkers, I will tell you something very interesting I'm observing in the streets, because Mamdani is really electric with younger voters. And what you have is those younger voters convincing mom and dad, convincing grandma and grandpa, hey, give it a shot. Do you like what's going on? And I know that just sounds silly and anecdotal, but I see it every day on the streets where older New Yorkers are kind of like, the grandkid says vote for him. I don't like anyone else. So let's give it a try. I mean, I get it. It's not scientific. It's just me being in the city, reporting in the city. But it's a phenomenon I'm observing, and I think there's something to it.
Wow, that counts. What you hear in the streets, that matters.
That is the job. Observe and report. Pix 11 senior political reporter Henry Rossoff, former classmate of mine as well. Henry, always
awesome.
good to see you, man. Thank you for
That's
coming.
true.
Thank you so much.